guys? It's your boy Luke here for our Wednesday fades and sleepers for this week's Pebble Beach Pro Am. These are going to be some of the more overhyped players going into this week, my fades, and of course some of the overlooked golfers, my diamonds in the rough, my sleeper picks for these GPP contests. Of course, the goal here is to try and avoid some of the chalk that I don't expect to perform very well this week, and to try and target some of the overlooked, really low-owned leverage plays we can look for these large field tournaments. Of course, in golf, it's such a volatile sport. You can argue that anytime somebody gets an inflated amount of ownership, it should be almost an automatic fade, but particularly when the public seems a little bit higher on somebody than they should be. So we're going to go ahead and start off with our fades here. That's who those players will be. But of course, our sleeper picks, probably even more so important. These are going to be some of the lower owned plays who, if they end up hitting this week, are really going to vault you up the leaderboard. So with that being said, this is probably the most important video every single week, because when it comes to golf DFS, ownership's probably the most important factor, right? Course fit matters, recent form matters, but more than anything, ownership in game theory is how you win. It's such a volatile sport. That's why it has such importance here and why we're going to focus on it. So let's go ahead and hop right on into it. All right, on the screen, you guys can see our projections for this week. Of course, these are updated whenever weather drops. If there's any updates to the player pool, changes in my modeling that I'm tinkering with, these are always on my Patreon page. Links down there to join if you're not already a member. You get access to all these spreadsheets. Of course, the community Discord to ask me any questions or interact with the rest of the community, which is extremely bright. We have a bunch of winners in there. A bunch of people that hit Luke list last week. So people you can bounce ideas off of and share your player pool with. But either way, let's go ahead and start with our first fade here, which is going to be Maverick McNealy, who is a DFS sweetheart this week. I'm probably the only one going out on a limb and fading him. So again, it's bold, right? But it's something that I'm willing to do this week, because I think the sentiment on him is a little bit too bullish, right? You're dealing with a guy who was $8,500 last year at this golf tournament, was coming in with similar type of form and ended up paying off that chalk. So all anyone can remember about Maverick McNealy is that he's quote unquote good at Pebble Beach. He's had 2 good finishes here, which sure, he's had 3 starts to this point of his career, so that can be impressive. But at the same time, people are looking a little bit too much into that. This is a golfer who's certainly above average, certainly on the rise on the PGA Tour, but for him to be $9,800, to also be one of the highest owned golfers in this field, particularly of this elite tier range, is borderline ridiculous. This is a solid golfer, but he's no Justin Rose, he's no Jason Day, he's certainly not a Justin Spieth, a Daniel Berger, or a Patrick Cantlay. I mean, just the talent difference between these 4 guys up top and then somebody like a Maverick McNealy is, you know, the difference between the teens in the official World Golf Rankings and somebody that's close to 50, 60 at the very best. And this is during his best stretch of golf for his career, which, again, the recent form's great. It's great to see that he paid off last week as one of our core picks. But to coming in at this price tag, coming in at this ownership level, it's a pure game theory play. He's just not that sure of a thing. I mean, last week he had a very solid start to the golf tournament, but on the end of Friday and on Saturday, completely fell apart. I mean, the guy couldn't hit a fairway, wasn't making a putt for his life, and that concerns me, right? You know, the numbers in Poa look great. Let's take a look at some of the shots gained metrics to give you an idea of some of the things that worry me as well. I mean, this around the green play, right? Historically, he's rated around average with his around the green play, but of late has been slightly below average. That's not really going to get it done here. You're looking at hitting right around 55 to 60% of your greens at best at Pebble Beach, and that's across all 3 golf courses. And at Spyglass Hill, you're looking at hitting less than 50% of greens. So if you're not getting up and down, you're not somebody who's gaining in that category, particularly if you're one of these stud options up top. That is a huge concern. That's also why Justin Rose isn't a core pick for me this week. It's why he's not somebody that I'm writing up in any of these videos. He has legit concerns around the green. Same thing with Alanto Griffin, which we're going to get here in a second. Another thing to worry about with Maverick McNealy is his wedges. If we take a look at some of the approach ranges over here, from 50 to 125 yards, he sees number 87 on tour, which for some of these stud guys up top is among the worst. It's up there with somebody like Jason Day. But from the 125 to 150 range, which is arguably even more important, it's the highest exposed range this week in terms of your approach shots. He's 136 in the world. So even though he's looked good of late, he's gained with his irons. Majority of those have been long irons, which you don't really have to take advantage of here at Pebble Beach. So Maverick McNealy, I liked him last week. We rode that hot form here. He might still make a cut, might still crack the top 25, but he's $9,800. He's one of the most expensive players on the board. And to pay off, you really need him to finish in the top 3 at the very least. And I'm not quite sure he's going to do that this week. I'd much rather play Jason Day at lower ownership. Much rather go to a Justin Rose. Of course, I'd rather pay up for any of these 3 options up top, whether it's a Berger, Spieth, or Cantlay. And I'm going to need the room in my lineups to go ahead and do so. So Maverick McNealy in the 25 to 30% of my lineups I would have to allocate to take him are just not going to be a thing. Next up, we're going to have Seamus Power, another DFS sweetheart, somebody that we've wrote up here on the channel more than a dozen times over the last 3 to 4 months. He's somebody who we've ridden this hot stretch of form. The thing with Seamus Power is he's good at easy golf courses. This is somebody who has that resort style feel. It's no surprise that he played well here in the fall. We hopped on the train early. It's not like we were late to the party there. We hit him early, if anything, right? We were targeting him even before that Barbasol win. He was posting a ton of cuts made in a row. We were on him then. And I think I've played Seamus Power for at least 20 straight events. Every time he's teed it up, I've been on him. And it's worked out. He's made a ton of cuts. He's posted a bunch of top 5s, bunch of top 10s. It may come to an end this week. This is a hard golf course. You saw him struggle a little bit the last time out. He played a hard golf course. Historically not the best putter on Poa Nua. And much like a Maverick McNealy, it hasn't been quite as evident of late. He's not really the best around the green player. You can see at some of these resort style golf courses, he is gaining around the green, but historically that is not a constant for him. Especially early on in his career, he was bleeding strokes around the green. If we take a look at some of the driving stats, you can see he's both not very long off the tee, also not very accurate. And in these approach stats in that wedge range, you can see from the 50 to 125 yard range, he's number 123 in the world. Is okay to see that he's number 57 in the world from 125 to 150, but it's not like he's elite in either category. So I'm worried about the putting on Poa. I'm worried about a little bit of that wedge play around the green play that we've seen over the years. He's $9,400, so much like a Maverick McNealy, probably a little bit more expensive than he should be. Hopefully he goes out, misses a few cuts, and I wish him the best in the future, but if he does, he'll be right around $8,000 again, probably in the single digit owned, which makes him, again, a great DFS play, right? That's when we want to hop back on him. But as I expect him to go on a little bit of cooler here, Ali's coming in right now at 16.42% expected ownership. I'm going to be a fade, unfortunately. Have to jump off the Seamus Power train. Now, finally, we have Lanto Griffin, who is, again, another one that DFS players love to play, and myself included, right? We've been on the Lanto Griffin train quite often on this channel. Unfortunately, he's $8,800 now, and I get it, the field's not very strong, but it's not like there's not strong pivots around him. There's great plays like a Christian Bazane who I borderline made a core play this week. Ryan Palmer, who might not be the best course fit. I'd rather play Ryan Palmer than Lanto Griffin. You can see he's not in my player pool right now just because we have so much exposure to these adjacent plays. People like a Kevin Streelman, people like a Kevin Kisner, who we've already talked about in our core picks video, people like a Matt Fitzpatrick, who's also a core play for me. Just better course fits, much higher pedigree players for just a few $100s more. So for him to be coming in at the same, if not higher ownership than some of these pivots is just ridiculous, right? It's an ownership play. He should be closer to 5-6% owned. If he was at that type of level, definitely in my player pool, right? Like, I get it. We take a look at the shots gain metrics. They're not jumping off the board, but I understand why people are playing him, right? He's been good on approach. The off the tee play has been just about average. Putting, just about average, what we've seen from him. What worries me is that he's both inaccurate off the tee, also not very long. And we take a look at the wedge stats, not very strong. Number 119 in the world from 125 to 150, and then also number 108 from 50 to 125 yards. So bad across those key categories with those wedges, which you'll have at all 3 of these very short golf courses. So it is going to be a fade. It's, again, an ownership thing. It's nothing against Lanto Griffin. Seamus Power, Maverick McNealy, some of my favorite golfers on tour, at least for the guys coming up, right? Just people we've been backing on this channel. All the metrics have pointed towards them having a very good year. It's just they shouldn't be priced where they are. They also shouldn't be as highly owned as they are. The pivots around them, just much stronger plays. You see me rostering somebody like a Cameron Trengale, who, frankly, I'm just not a big fan of. I don't like him. If I'm playing him over somebody like Maverick McNealy, it's just the course fit, right? Somebody who's great with the wedge, is extremely accurate off the tee. On Poa Nua has been very solid for his career, much like somebody like a McNealy. I'd much rather make those pivots. All right, and now for our sleepers. First off, we have Jordan Spieth at $10,300, who a lot of people don't want to play this week because he was in the hospital last Wednesday. He had a stomach bug, had to go in, get fluids, that type of thing. Still toughed it out for the weekend. Didn't have his best performance, ended up missing the cut, but overall, he looked really good with the putter. The ball striking wasn't quite there, which I definitely want to attribute to the hospital stay. And now that he's had an entire week to go out, recuperate himself, get back into playing shape at a golf course that really fits his game, a course that he's won at in the past. He's plenty of top 5, top 10s. He's got the around the green play to get himself up and down. And of course, one of the best wedge games in all of the sport. So that's why he's such a good course fit here, why I'm willing to take a shot on him. It's also coming in at just 9.21% projected ownership. And we take a look at some of the advanced metrics of late, they haven't been great. It's why he's coming in with single digit ownership, losing nearly 7/10 of a stroke per round on approach, hasn't even been himself putting. But if we take a look at just last week's sample size, which was also on Poa Anua greens, over there at Torrey Pines, he was gaining all over the place. Looks like his usual self, was aggressive, was dripping some of those patented Spieth 20-footers in as well. If you can continue to do that, hit a bunch of these small greens like he has over the years. Again, he's one of the best wedge players of all time. The one thing that's really keeping me at least a little bit encouraged about his game is that even though he's losing all these strokes on approach, it doesn't look like he's gaining much with the putter. Look at the birdie or better percentage, number 7 in the world. So he's still finding a way to get the ball in the cup, still showing some of that Jordan Spieth magic. So if he can get over the illness he had last week, get back to that ball striking that we've seen at Pebble Beach over the years. The putter looked good last week. The aggressiveness has still been there, and if he can clean up some of the really ugly misses, he's going to have a really solid week. Let's go ahead and see why he's not playing very well. First off, 133rd in driving accuracy. He's getting himself into a lot of trouble. You can see from the 50 to 125 yard range, which many in the would argue that Spieth is the best player in the world from that range. He's been number 151, so he's had some uncharacteristic misses. He's got to clean that up. But most importantly, most drastically here, he's number 101 from inside 5 feet, 100 from 5 to 10, and 114 from 10 to 15. Just makes no sense. That's not Jordan Spieth, right? He's got to clean up the putting. So if he can do all of that this week, which is very foreseeable, right? Usually Jordan Spieth doesn't do all of these things. He's going to have a massive week. He's the perfect course fit. And it's not like he's somebody I'm using in a core lineup, a single entry type of build, but in these large field GPPs at single digit ownership, he could come in closer to 5-6% even in some of these large high stakes type of contests. Going to give you a ton of leverage, and if he turns it all around, could literally run away with this golf tournament. He has that type of game. Next up for our sleepers, we're going to have Kevin Streelman, who I didn't anticipate having in this video. He's somebody I thought would be chalk even at $9,100, but you can see we have him at 7.54% projected ownership, which is just far too low. He's somebody who's historically been very good at this event, particularly when there's been a Pro-Am. His partner's Larry Fitzgerald, who's extremely competitive, pit guy, obviously wide receiver over there for the Cardinals. Either way though, really like when those two are paired up. In terms of a course fit, Kevin Streelman fits the bill there as well. He's good with the wedges. In terms of the putting on Poa Anua, it's by far his best surface, the only surface in tour that he gains historically on. Around the green, one of the best players in the world, so when he gets himself into trouble, which isn't all too often, he's typically very precise with those irons, is able to get it up and down. With the driver, more of an accuracy guy than anything. You can see he's number 25 in the world in driving accuracy. The distance isn't quite elite at number 130 in the world, but that is not an issue around Pebble Beach. And you can see, even though the irons haven't been quite as good as in the past, from that 150 to 175 yard range, which you will have quite a few shots from this week, number 42 in the world, and from 50 to 125 yards, by far the most important range there, number 52 in the world. So could definitely improve at this 111 mark right there. But again, we're getting Kevin Streelman, who has elite course history here at Pebble Beach. Somebody who will be with Larry Fitzgerald. Once again, we were able to confirm that here this morning. And coming in at single digit ownership, going to be a great leverage spot. Now finally for our last sleeper pick, going to be Minwoo Lee, who we don't really want to look at the numbers here because first off, he hasn't played much here on the PGA Tour, and when he has, a lot of times it's been without shot link. It's been at WGC type of events where we don't count them in the actual PGA Tour database. That's why we get a lot of these negative numbers here. But Min-Woo Lee, if you've been paying attention to the European Tour, is an absolute stud. He's won multiple times over the last few months, and in his last 5 starts has 3 top 5 finishes. And these aren't jokes of fields. These are the best European Tour events, Rolex type of events. Nearly won the Tour Championship this year. He was number 1 in driving distance on the European Tour. With his irons, he's a top 50 player, around the green top 50. Same thing with his putting. He's a well-rounded player who's really good off the tee. And even though off the tee isn't a huge factor here at Pebble Beach, the fact that he's well-rounded very well is going to translate over here to America, especially at a golf course like Pebble Beach where you need to be well-rounded. You have to be styled in all 4 major statistical categories to compete. That is going to be advantageous. Another thing with Min-Woo Lee, he's been here for the last 2.5 weeks practicing, getting used to these greens, the link style course at Pebble Beach. I've seen him at Cypress Point, which is right down the road, very similar to Monterey Peninsula, right next to Spy Gas Hill, getting used to those type of tracks. So it's not like he's going to be coming over here jet lagged, that type of thing from Europe. He's been getting ready for this. He's been gearing up for it. So he's not going to have those usual problems that these European Tour players have. He's gone the jet lag out of the way. He's gotten a lot of practice on these venues. And overall, with his pedigree, should be a very solid play. So the fact that he's coming in at just 5.03% projected ownership, much too low for somebody with his upside. Could legit win this week. I would not be surprised. I said the same thing about Garrick Higgo when he came over. Was coming over with a very similar stretch form. Had won multiple times coming in. Now, Min-Woo has the 1 win over the last month. Multiple top 5s, multiple top 10s, that kind of thing. But I'm getting similar type of vibes here. If he went out and won his first tournament, I'll just say I told you first. And I told you guys first with Higgo as well at Congaree. So we'll have to see if that pans out. He'll be in some of my DFS lineups, probably right around 20-25%, because I see him having a very solid week here. And if he comes in at 5% or even just a little bit higher than that, I'll be more than happy with that. I'll have much more than the field will have. And of course, if he goes out and struggles his first time out here, we've seen him in quite some time, wouldn't surprise me either, right? But we're only investing 20-25% of our lineups, right? So it's not going to kill us. But in terms of the investment, in terms of the risk reward there, I'm definitely in a plus situation. That's all I've got for this week's fades and sleepers. Before we go on and get on out of here, make sure you let me know first off who your biggest fade is for this week, and of course your biggest sleeper pick. I always love to hear from you guys. I really like Min-Woo Lee as a sleeper. McNeely and Power, my biggest fades for the week. But go ahead and let me know who you guys have got. Also, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're going to have even more DFS content coming throughout the future, whether it's for golf, our showdown content throughout the weekend, our DFS live stream tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time, or our NFL or NBA content dropping daily as well. I've got you covered for all those sports. Also, a link down in the description for the live stream tonight, so you can go ahead and set a reminder there. We'll be covering the weather, my player pool, we'll be covering any live questions you have down in the chat, some DFS strategy. We'll make some lineups together. Overall, just come by while you're making your lineups for tomorrow, and we'll chat and get you prepared. If you have any specific questions, also make sure you prepare those. Go ahead and bring them in. We'll get them all answered for you. But thank you guys for stopping by, enjoying the content. Thank you guys for all of the support here. We're almost at 600 subscribers, which is pretty mind-blowing. Feels like we hit 500 like literally a week and a half ago. So thank you guys for all the support, just growing the channel and everything like that. I look forward to bringing you guys even more content into the future. I'll see you guys tonight, and good luck with all of your lineups this weekend.